Yeah, for sure. I'm Fawaz, I'm the legislative director. Pretty much everyone should have a new note card and a pen in their seat. When we get further down the PowerPoint, we'll be collecting those. We'll do some Q&A at the end. If we don't get to your question, our office will email you a response next week to your question.
Perfect.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Because I know the last time that I was in this room, we had some folks that weren't able to hear me. I'm trying to get better of amplifying myself when I speak, but I still sometimes am not the best about it. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I see so many familiar faces, so many folks who, have been supporters for so long, who came to the Capitol, who I've been working in conjunction with for our schools, for our businesses. And so I really appreciate y'all taking the opportunity. I know a lot of y'all may have been coming from some of the protests that were this morning. Thank you so much for getting out and exercising your constitutional right. But before we get started, I wanted to first and foremost acknowledge we originally had this scheduled for this morning. Unfortunately, we lost a giant in our community. Reverend Rainwater passed away very unexpectedly, and both me, Representative Bumgarner, as well as Representative Bonchia, were honored to recognize him on the floor and the impact that he's made in our community, whether public education, civil rights, and really—
You lost your mic.
And really just mentoring people in general. There we go. And so before we get started today, we did have his service this morning. It was a beautiful, powerful service, but just to recognize him and the contribution that he made to not just Farmers Branch and Carrollton, but really the whole Metro Crest area. I just wanted to take a few moments for a moment of silence for him and recognizing and honoring what he has done for our community. Thank you so much. So with that, I once again thank you all so much for being here today. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can.
The IT guys are going to come take it.
Okay. Hopefully y'all can hear me. If not, just throw your hand up and I'll yell a little bit louder. But once again, thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I more than anything wanted to make sure that we did this right after session when things were still raw and fresh in the brain, and also to hopefully catch y'all before any potential special session may be called. As some of y'all who have followed in the past couple sessions, we have had many instances where special sessions were called. Us as legislators were told that we didn't necessarily need to expect that this time, but for some of y'all who have been following, there has been chatter about certain particular bills that either didn't pass or potential want for redistricting to happen, that there has been discussion about potential special sessions happening. And so, just like the boss had said, we passed the cards out. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those on the cards, and we will collect those. We'll hope to answer as many as we can. If we can't, we will be sure to get in touch after the fact to make sure that that is answered. And of course, you know that you can always reach out to our office and meet individually if you ever have questions about anything that's going on in the community, or if you need a resolution done for any particular matter, you want to make sure somebody's recognized for the great work that they do in the district or yourself. And of course, if there's anything as far as like whether you want to come see the Capitol or those type of things, please reach out. Or if you've got local events or things that you'd love our team to come out and support, we'd be happy to do that. We try to make everything, we try to be in every city, and we try to spread out so that way we give everybody love. But we rely on you as well as a lot of our newsletters from our chambers and our cities to let us know what's going on, so that way we can put them on our calendar and get out there. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started and be mindful with y'all's time. So we'll go ahead and head to the first one. This is going to be just the agenda for today. So we're going to talk a little bit, and of course, I'm sure most of y'all already know Mariah Fereming, who's my in-district director. She goes to everything. She's been my eyes and ears while we have been in session, making sure to be there for city council meetings or watching them online, our school board meetings, going to a lot of the city events, and all of those things. So thank y'all so much for being so gracious with her and keeping her in the loop of things that are really important to the community that our office needed to be informed about. And so we'll also talk about appropriations and the budget. I had the honor, a distinct honor, of being allowed to be one of 6 freshmen that served on the appropriations, so I got to work on our state budget. And I served on 6, 7, and 8 articles, which cover economic business development, our agencies, as well as our infrastructure. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, as well as the breakdown of some of our big budget items and things that I was able to actually get funding for House District 115 that will benefit Irving in particular and the Capel area as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the legislation that we filed, one of the bills that has already been signed into law, as well as a couple more that we're hoping is going to cross the finish line and will become law as well. And some of the ones also that we supported as a joint author or co-author that were very important to the district or Texans as a whole. And then also just maybe some bills that didn't quite get over the finish line, but what happened with those and our intentions on making sure that those get filed next session. And then we'll talk a little bit, very briefly, just give you kind of update of some of the things that we're going to be doing the next month. And then also a lot of the really fun things we have planned for our office in general for the district here in the near future. And then we'll, of course, open up for question and answer. So let's go ahead and hop to some of the events that our office attended. And Mariah, if you wouldn't mind coming up here, because this is your time to shine. I can't tell y'all enough. I have such an amazing team, both in the district as well as the Capitol. I know a lot of y'all had the opportunity to come to the Capitol, and my team has been so important. They know that our #1 priority that we all agreed on was making sure that we were responsive, that we were courteous, respectful, and sensitive to a lot of very sensitive issues that a lot of y'all contacted our office about. So I thank both of my teammates for that. But Mariah was our shining star in the district, and so I'm sure you probably caught her at some of the retirement ceremonies. A lot of our first responders had their awards ceremonies. Mariah was gracious enough to make sure that our resolutions made it to those and presented them on my behalf. Memorial Day wreath laying, our Memorial Day events. I'm sure y'all saw her at a lot of the coffee events for our police officers. She also went to all of the DART meetings that were throughout our district, just so she could be present and hear what the concerns and questions of everybody in our cities had regarding mass transit. She also made sure to show up for a lot of our chamber events as well, and then of course being present and showing up for all of our candidate forums, so she could kind of be the eyes and ears of who were going to be our future potential leaders, and coordinating with our school boards as well, and our city council members and our mayors too. And so thank you so much for that, Mariah. I can't thank you enough. And just so y'all know, Mariah is going to continue to keep being our in-district as long as she wants to stick with me. And we're super excited because now we have been working on figuring out where exactly we are going to have our in-district office. So we're hoping to be opening our in-district office between now and the end of the year. And so we're working with a lot of our chambers and some of our business community and finding out where is going to be that best location for us to call home. So we'll look forward to letting all. We look forward to obviously inviting all of you and the whole community to whenever we do the ribbon cutting for that, and welcoming everybody to your new district office. So So thank you so much, Mariah. I appreciate it. And then so we gonna talk a little bit about appropriations. And so this was probably my favorite committee of all the committees that I served on. Appropriations was a great opportunity, especially as a freshman member, to see firsthand everything that goes into and meet every agency that answers to the legislature. So I got to have the TEA come before me, and the Water Board, and the Department of Housing, and all of those things. And we had the opportunity to get to know them and hear the legislation that had passed last session and get updates about the current status of their budget, and also go through and find out what their asks of the state legislature in budgeting for our next biennium or the next 2 years for our state. And so we were the people that essentially they had to come to and say, hey, we need more employees, or we need to upgrade our technology, or we need this, we need that. And we were on the committee that decided if whether they got that or not. And so it was a great opportunity. It was an honor. More than anything, it was a learning experience to get to see and learn and meet all of the heads of all of our agencies that make our state work. And it also helped us get an idea of the work and some of the riders that maybe we didn't get across the finish line. Now we've built relationship with some of these agencies that we're hoping, instead of them being riders, we will have them introduced into the actual agency request, so that way we don't have to worry about a rider potentially getting stripped out during the conference period of the budget. So with that, we were able to get one rider that was very important to us, and that one was $2 million for the Campion Trails Park, which is in Irving. It's going to finish the last stretch, and that is an interconnectivity park that goes throughout the Dallas area. It also touches in Capel as well, so it will connect Capel all through Irving, through the rest of Dallas. And so we were able to get that for them. It's going to cover the final 3.5 trail connection through the Trinity River area and all of that different area. And so we informed Irving and let all of our Irving folks know that that has been approved, and the process for them to get those funds in order to complete that particular project. So we were super happy to be able to be part of that. But like I said, there were some other riders as well. We had some other asks of parks. We had the microgrid as well from the Capel area. That was one of the asks. A parking garage for a DART structure in Farmers Branch. And some of that stuff, the chairman of appropriations, Chairman Bonin, said that some of that stuff we may actually be able to get funding outside of the budget. So we're working with his office through Department of Transportation and those other entities to see to what level we can get funding and granting for projects like that as well. So that's just generally as far as the rider that we submitted and got through the appropriations process. And that was actually on my articles 6, 7, and 8. And so a lot of folks don't realize, but having a member who sits on appropriations is really important, because you get a special privilege. And Bonin, who heads up appropriations, our committee chairman, and Wale, who was my chairman on my subcommittee, they fight for our riders a little bit harder because we're members and we contribute our time to build the budget. And so it gives districts like House District 115, who has a rep on appropriations, a leg up in being able to see more money come towards their district. And so I was super happy, and I worked really hard to try to get on appropriations, and I was really honored and happy that both the speaker as well as Chairman Bonin were willing to help me get across the finish line and get on to 6, 7, and 8 on the appropriations. As I'm sure y'all probably already know, school finance, $8.5 billion, that was earmarked in the budget and passed through both the House and the Senate, and has already been signed by the governor, as well as property taxes, which is going to give $140,000 homestead exemption increase, and a $200,000 for seniors, which will be on the ballot. Although we have done the job that we need to do in the legislature, us as voters have to approve it. So in November, this will be one of the things that will be on the ballot. Just a little bit more about Campion Trails. This just shows you kind of where the connectivity is, and our corporation will be completing this particular route between those areas right there. So we were super proud to be able to do that. Like I said, not only myself, but also your Austin team, both Fabaz as well as Patricia Newman, my chief, worked very hard. Not only me with the committee directly, but with them, with all of the staff, and making sure that our riders stayed at the forefront and did not get stripped out. So I appreciate all of their efforts in making sure we got that done. So school finance, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about this. This one in particular is the one that was the most #1 contact from our district was regarding the school finance bill. And obviously vouchers as well. But of course I knew y'all's position on vouchers was no, and I made sure to vote as such. And so, but the school finance, if you notice on quotations, I have the largest public education funding in Texas history. And the reason why is because I just wanted to make sure that I reiterate to you, was I proud to vote for this bill? Yes. All of our school districts need this money, but it was not enough. And there was probably no bigger district or one of the biggest districts that showed up more than our school district. School districts, but in particular 115. Between Carrollton Farmers Branch, Capel, Irving, DISD, we had such a huge turnout, and I'm talking every week we had people walking through that Capitol, knocking on doors, calling, emailing, saying that we have to fund our public schools. And I don't have to tell y'all, I was here for one vote on school closures for one of our school districts, for Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD. Our schools are struggling. We do not have enough funding, and this, even though they hold it out as the largest public education funding in Texas history, it's not good enough. And so I just want y'all to keep that in mind as I'm talking about this. Although we did get some things that were very much needed and appreciated for our school districts, it's still not enough. And so they allocated $500 million for salary increases for school counselors, librarians, nurses, and other support staff. $4 billion for educator pay raises. This was probably the biggest ask, was that so many people our teachers need to get paid more. I mean, y'all made sure that our office and other offices knew that. So thank you so much for those efforts. $1.3 billion for insurance costs. A lot of our school districts that I spoke to on a regular basis were saying that, you know, no matter what help that they got, a lot of times it was just getting wiped out with how much and the cost of insurance rates, because our insurance for school districts is very high as well. You got to insure the schools, you got to insure the administrative buildings, and even the buildings out they're not using as well. So, so allocating that was important. You know, actually funding the unfunded school safety mandate that was passed the session prior. They did put some money towards that as well, so $430 million for school safety. And then they tied the basic allotment to growth of property values, yielding automatic increases in public education moving forward. It was really important, and a lot of us were talking about making sure that we have to tie funding to inflation, because we're seeing that we're not keeping up with it. And having to go back every session and figuring that out has been a real pain for past legislatures. And so it was really important that we were able to get that included in here as well. In addition to that, we got so many calls on this. Thank y'all. Special education, severely underfunded in Texas. We know that. And so we got $850 million, but like I said, not enough. We need more money for special education. They also funded 1,000 reimbursements for student evaluations for special education. But like I said, we talked to Carrollton Farmers Branch, also Capel. That does not cover all of the expenses and making sure that children are properly placed where they need to in special education. In addition to that, one of the things that, and I will talk a little bit about this later, the summer EBT funding for $60 million, so important. We know that our schools, especially in underserved communities, depend on those summer meals. And as a matter of fact, I know Carrollton Farmers Branch, substantial amount of children that depend on summer meals. And so making sure that we had that extra money was really important. Yes.
EBT is what?
So EBT is the summer feeding program for children. And so, you know, our schools are really like a support system for so many families. And so when our schools aren't in session, we've got kids that go hungry. And so the summer EBT program makes sure that children in between school years are still getting meals. And so we were able to get that across the finish line. That one was one that, in particular, certain individuals, Democrats, fought really hard for. And we had to make concessions for that. And a lot of people don't realize that. Representative Armando Wale, who was my chairman on appropriations, this was a very important fight for him, as well as other individuals like Trey Martinez Fisher, as well as our caucus, in making sure that children had the funding that we needed for this. For some of y'all who follow state politics, we missed out on a lot of funding last summer in making sure that children received these meals, because we did not meet the requirements on the federal level to get the match and the money to pull it down for the state of Texas. And so when we don't do that, that means we have to pick and choose, and that leaves a lot of people out. And those are children that should be fed. And so we worked really hard in making sure that a particular bill that we voted for would end up making sure that this particular rider made it into the budget. Just so y'all know, this is the kind of stuff that happens in the legislature. It's very often having to negotiate on okay, can we work on this, or can we get an agreement on this, and then we can do this. And so the summer EBT program was a hard-fought thing that we really wanted to make sure that we had and that we were able to accomplish. So now the property tax relief, like I said, this is going to depend on voter approval. So this, as well as there will be other things that will be on the constitutional here in November, but this is going to be one of the most important, is going to be regarding the property taxes. And for all of y'all that signed in, I think we took emails. We will also make sure to share this slideshow with you. So if there's any information on there, you can pull it, and we've got some stuff towards the end as well. So this one, we increased the homestead exemption from what it currently is by 40,000, so now it's 140,000. The senior and individuals with disabilities was increased by 90,000. We also did a $3 billion in rate compression, so buy down property taxes by 6.8 cents. And they also did 120,000 in business exemption. So that was an increase from the personal exemption from 2,500. And obviously that was very important to a lot of our chambers and a lot of our business community, and to a lot of folks in the legislature, because to what level that we can continue to be a business-friendly state and encourage businesses to come here and create jobs for Texans is important to, well, it should be important to all of us. And so, in addition to that, I think the next one, yeah, that was that one, okay. And then with that, so we just want to talk a little bit about some of the bills that we ended up getting across the finish line and, or passed out of the House. So as of right now, we've got 3 that are currently on the governor's desk. Senate Bill 1079, the companion bill was 2413. That one was signed by Governor Abbott on May 29th, and I'll talk a little bit about that bill later. So that one's already, that one will be law starting in September. And then we've got 2 other, House Bill 923 and Senate Bill 1283 that hopefully will not get vetoed. If it gets signed, great, but if not, it will still become law in September. And then we've got a couple of House bills that passed out of the House, and then we had a few that made it onto the calendar, but unfortunately the calendar towards the end got chubbed, and a lot of bills died. So we'll definitely make sure that we refile a lot of those bills.
So if they get passed out of the House, are they still eligible for reconciliation with the Senate, or they die too?
So it's a process. We've got, different deadlines of whenever certain bills need to be decided by the House and the Senate. And it depends on what kind of bill it is. If it's a Senate bill, it comes over to the House. Once we're done with it, we vote it out, then it goes to the governor's desk. And you'll see that whenever we go into a little bit more detail on some of these bills. There are instances where we have companion bills, and so if the Senate ends up getting it out and getting it to the House, we will essentially take the Senate bill and do that through the process versus the House bill, because it's already passed through the Senate. Once we get it through the House, then it goes straight up to the governor's office. So it's all kind of figuring out where it's at in the process and how much time you have left, and determining what particular bill you want to move forward. But good question. So Senate Bill 1079, this one was the one that Governor Abbott signed on May 29th. It will become effective on September 1st of this year. This particular bill was a bill that Dallas County requested that I carry on the House side, and that Senator Royce West carry on the Senate side. So both me and him and our offices work together to get this across the finish line. This particular bill just makes sure that as of right now, counties in the state of Texas, so this is a statewide bill, counties in the state of Texas are obligated in instances of any technology or anything that they're going to get rid of, they have to either salvage, or, what was the other stuff? Auction it, yes, salvage or auction it off. And some of it included things like computers that housed things like people's credit card information, social security numbers, date of births, addresses, all of those type of things. And even though a lot of counties have mechanisms in place to make sure they wipe it out, technology always advances, and to what level we can protect people's private data and sensitive data, we want to do that. And we also had some other bills and legislation that were within the same realm of data protection, AI type stuff. And so this one was a perfect fit for us. We were able to get it across the finish line, and now it will be law in September. So we were excited to be able to get that done, both our office and Senator West's office as well. One of the other ones that is sitting on the governor's desk is House Bill 923. The Texas Medical Disclosure Panel is one that decides on anytime you go to a doctor or you go to the hospital, you end up getting injured and you get wheeled in. Any of the consent forms that you or the person who is your representative signs, this medical disclosure board or panel is the one that determines what that looks like. And it's one of the few agencies or committees or entities in the government that did not have public members on it. And so we had somebody approach us and let us know that one of the sunset requests for agencies and organizations was to make sure that public has at least a third participation in the process, and they were not complying with that. And so we went ahead and filed a bill and just changed the makeup of that to include 3 public members. So that way, just lay people can say, hey, if somebody wheels me in and I don't have the ability to consent to something, this is something that I would probably, either myself or my loved one would want to know so that they can make the best decision for me. So we were super happy to be able to get that all the way to the governor's desk with support from my colleagues, as well as Senator Blanco. And so we're just waiting until June 22nd to see if whether he will sign it or if whether he'll just leave it alone, and then on September 1st it'll become law. Senate Bill 1283 was a bill that Senator Parker was heading up, and we've got a very special person here with us who was very, very important in making sure that we could finally get it as far as it has gotten today. I know that you probably don't want to come up here, but I would love it, Shannon, if you could just come up here just for a second, because I got to give you your flowers. This woman is such a force, and she, as well as so many other daughters and families, of victims here in North Texas have been fighting for this particular bill for session after session. And thank you. She said she would be sure to be here whenever we give the ledge update on this particular bill, because this by far was the most special, most near and dear bill that literally our whole office was hyper-focused on making sure that this thing got across the finish line. And so Senator Parker carried it on the Senate side. Representative, Patterson had carried it in past sessions, as well as Julie had a version too. And of course, Julie is no longer here. She's in Congress, representing us very well. But Representative Patterson very graciously offered for me to carry it. He knew that Shannon was a constituent. He knew that Shannon had been working with Julie on this bill. He also represented another family that was also impacted by the murders here in North Texas. And so he helped me get it across the finish line. He was my first JA. He helped me get it through committee. He stood alongside me whenever we laid it out on second and third reading, and we passed it unanimously. So every state rep that was on that floor voted yes for this bill. And that's an example. That's just an example of how important bills, the things that y'all care about, that y'all are passionate about, the things that you experience, and the passion for you to make sure that you make an impact in people's lives, and that you make sure that things that you experience, nobody ever has to experience again. That's the amount of power that y'all have whenever you come to your state representative or your senator and you say, hey, I want to do something about this. So thank you so much, Shannon, for your activism. I can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you. I want you to know the respect that this woman, our representative, carries. Because if you're a junkie and you watch the floor, they're out there talking, they go over and they push a button and they vote. When she laid this bill out, by the time she was 2/3 of the way through, she had commanded every representative's attention on the floor. They stopped their talking, they stopped their joking, they stopped everything, and they listened to our state representative, which as a freshman also is huge. So we are very lucky.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I really appreciate it. And I want to talk a little bit about what this bill does, because it is going to have such a huge impact for our senior community. And so this we nicknamed the Senior Safety Bill, because that's exactly what it does, is it protects our seniors. And it was filed as a response to the violent crimes committed by Billy Shamir in the 2010s at the senior retirement communities in North Texas. I'm sure a lot of y'all remember that particular case. It mandates that senior retirement communities conduct background checks of employees, disclosure of third-party service vendors, conduct background checks of their employees. It maintains a resident safety and communications policy informing residents of known criminal activity near the residents, including criminal trespass, and prohibits retirement communities from communicating with law enforcement offices. Y'all, we had a police officer that came and testified that one of the senior facilities that he went to, they had literally told the seniors that they could not speak to law enforcement. And that was one of the biggest hindrances, and kept them from being able to stop more deaths. And that was probably one of the most powerful, I think, we were on the floor that night until like maybe midnight, and we laid the bill out after midnight, and that was probably one of the most powerful nights that I ever had in that Capitol, was hearing that kind of testimony. But making sure that they communicate with law enforcement, officers, social workers, family members. They were even not allowing them to tell their family members that some of this stuff was happening, or other interested persons regarding safety and security of the residences. And so, like I said, this passed unanimously. Yes?
Are we missing words there? It sounds like it prohibits
Yeah.
retirement communities from prohibiting.
Yeah. Before
That
you publish the
residents-
slide,
No,
fix
yeah.
that paragraph.
Yeah, no, this literally just makes sure that they are not allowed to do that. They aren't allowed to keep seniors from being able to speak to law enforcement.
You're missing
from
the
being
word
able to-
inhibiting.
Yeah, the wording probably is not correct.
Because it
in the
sounds
paragraph.
backwards.
Oh, got it. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But yes, no, this is making sure that senior facilities are making sure that our seniors have the ability to speak to law enforcement, to talk to their family members, social workers, and also making sure that they're informed about people that are coming into the residences, that they're having their background checks done, all of those things. So this is just making sure that they do that. And this was actually done in conjunction because Shannon and so many of the families have been working so long, as well as with Senator Parker's office. We all worked very hard to make sure that all stakeholders were included. So even senior centers were included in this negotiation process of making sure that this was a bill that we could all come to the table and agree that these are the right things. This is the right thing that needs to be done. And so thank you so much again, Shannon, for all of your efforts, and thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. Okay. And then, so these are just some of the bills that we were able to get out of the House. They got to the Senate, but they weren't able because of time, like all of these really big bills. So the budget, vouchers, public education funding, THC, these are all really big bills that took a very long time on the floor. And we only have so much time that we have on the floor. So whenever you see big bills like that take up a lot of time, then what happens is a lot of some of these other bills end up not being able to pass. If I remember correctly, Fawaz, can you, what was the percentage of bills filed that actually passed this session? It was less.
It was like 12.5%, which is the lowest ever in
Yes,
history.
it was the lowest this session than ever. So we had a substantial amount of bills that were filed, not just us, but in general, from all the legislatures, all the legislators, but only a small percentage obviously being able to pass. So just some of these, House Bill 854, this was some of our insurance bills that we filed. The 854 allowed for people to get cash up front. Say for instance, your house is damaged by a tornado coming through. Your insurance company, you would contact them and they would have an appraiser come out and figure out what the cost would be. They would be required to give cash up front, or not cash, but the check up front, so that you could start the repairs and you could still continue the negotiation process, but at least you could start the process. And that was what we worked with some of our mayors for the cities, and we called that our anti-TARP bill. So that way we make sure people are getting, you know, the benefits of their premiums, right? We pay for our insurance. Let's go ahead and get that money up front so we can start our repairs. House Bill 3358. This was one that we were doing. I know you already know mental health is very important to me. This was one that we were carrying for our DA Creuzot, as well as we ended up having our JP judges also request. Remind me, the organization, the JP?
The Justice of the Peace and Council Association.
Yes. Now they're the statewide organization. They asked if we could add them to this bill. And what this allows them to do is essentially get access to peer counseling, because a lot of them end up seeing from our DA, our prosecutors, our city attorneys, they see the worst of the worst. They see child abuse cases, they see murders, including our JPs in our rural areas, because a lot of times they're the first responders, and they just wanted to be able to be included into a statute that designates them as a responder, so that way they can actually get access to mental health services without it impacting their file. So one of the big hindrances of first responders and individuals is that if they feel like if they go get counseling or they say they need help, that will impact their work and their job responsibilities, or they could even lose their job. And so we wanted to make sure to remove that stigma and give people access. This was a bill that was really passionate, and I think that this most likely could pass next session. We've already been talking to other people on how we can get it across the finish line. It got to the Senate, but we couldn't. It just got there so late, it couldn't get out of the committee quick enough. So that is one that we will certainly bring back again. We also did a low-income housing credit project. bill as well. That was Senator Royce West's bill. He asked us to carry it on the House side. That just essentially stated that our local cities, if they had an expedited process, then any of the projects that fell under low-income housing tax credit would be included into expedited projects. And that was just an example of us trying to create more affordable housing in our cities and of course around Texas. And so that one, we were able to get it out of the House, but same, we just weren't able to get it out of the Senate in time. In addition to that, we also had a 202 depositions bill, which just said making sure that people who are using it for either abusive or harassment purposes, if a judge determines that, they can levy attorney's fees against you. So if you make somebody else have to come and defend it, they find out you're using it to abuse someone or harassment. Very often this happens in the family law area. The judge can require that individual to pay the other person's attorney's fees for having to defend it. So that was another one passed out of the House, couldn't quite get it out of the Senate in time. Now some of these that were really important as well were ones that I supported and jumped onto. The STAR test, I know I've been talking to a lot of y'all about that already. Same, ran out of time. I have a feeling this is probably going to cross the finish line next session. During the interim, there is going to be discussions about this. One of the holds up on the STAR test was that we couldn't necessarily figure out what the alternative was going to be. And so there's discussions about maybe creating a state-created test or utilizing one that some other states have been using. So there was still so much back and forth going on. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get it out in time. And so, like I said, it looks like that's a bipartisan bill, as well as a bi-community bill. I mean, we're hearing from our teachers, our parents, our school boards. You know, everybody agrees that we gotta fix it. So I do believe that that most likely will be a fix that we will see next session. And I'll be, of course, I see some of our school board members working with y'all to pick your brain and figure out, you know, what are some good ideas so that way we can be ready for next session and be part of that discussion. In addition to that, Representative Wale, he created a statewide homeless data sharing network. This was a bill that came through my committee. I loved it so much. I asked him if I could be his first JA. And I worked with and discussed this with Tracy with MetroCrest Services. So what this particular bill does, and I told Wale I want to make sure that we file this very early next session and get it through, is it creates essentially what it says. So it allows nonprofits and organizations that are within the homelessness and unhoused sphere to be able to share information and what works in their areas and what they're doing and utilizing, so that way we don't have to reinvent the wheel everywhere, and we can learn what works and we can try to help as many people as we can. And I told Tracy, quite frankly, I think most people are probably just going to want to know what you're doing, because we know how great MetroCrest Services is for our MetroCrest area. And I always sing his praises whenever I was in the legislature. So that was one that I want to make sure that we support again. And then me and Mihaela Plisa, we had quite a few bills that we supported together. This one was regarding the recapture payments, making sure, I know we had talked about that a lot, and I know we had had a few discussions about how that bill kind of morphed through the process, making sure that recapture districts are able to see how much money is remaining in my district and how much money is going to Austin and recapture. And so this one, if I remember correctly,
All three of these died in the Senate.
that's right. That one also did not make it out of the Senate, although at this point I keep telling people, and I've learned this, one of the biggest things people always ask me, what's like the main thing that you learned? It's that it's not necessarily the other side or the other party, it's the Senate. The fight isn't with the other side, it's with the Senate. And so, because on the House side, there is a lot of compromise and work, and just working across the aisle that happens. It's when it gets to the Senate, it's a little bit different. So we obviously will make sure that we continue to keep fighting on these recapture bills. And she worked really hard on these. That one in particular was one of the first bills. I mean, it was House Bill 195. I think 1 through 500, 1 through
200.
1 through 200 were speaker priority bills, basically. And he allowed certain members to put their bills on certain numbers. And the reason why is because you have a lower bill number, the likelihood of being able to pass it is a little bit higher. And so when you see a bill like 195 not necessarily cross the finish line, usually it's because there was some resistance. And you usually only got to look at where it was at. And so hers was in the Senate. That probably means that probably me and her and whoever else is passionate about this particular bill needs to make sure that we work the Senate probably before we even go back for session. So that's going to be some of the things that we're identifying as a team, is figuring out where did the bill end, where was the hang up throughout the process. So now we identify, okay, these are the people who maybe had a problem. Let's go talk with them and see if we can hash this out before we even get to filing for the next session. Now, I'm not going to read all of these off to y'all. I'll give y'all the PowerPoint slide, but these are just some of the other bills as well that just didn't quite make it through the legislative process. Some of them, quite a few, are obviously mine. Some of them are local bills, like the SMR tax for Capel. We were able to get that SMR tax the furthest that it's ever gotten in the past. I worked very, very hard on that bill to try to get that as far as we could, but unfortunately that was one of the ones that we ran out on the clock. It was literally on the last day of our deadline, and there was so much chubbing, and for those of you who don't know what chubbing is, that means we spend too much time on bills so that we don't get to other bills. And there was so much of that happening that so many of the bills, if you were on page 10 or 11, your bill was basically dead. And so some of these bills were on there that were mine. So one of them was the SMR tax. Another one was the swoop and settle bill. That one was just saying that insurance companies aren't able to settle orally. They have to send you something in writing and get you to actually sign off on it. Is a practice that's going on right now. And so we were able to get it to we got it to the floor, but it didn't get voted
It's
on.
stuck in calendar.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, calendars. So we didn't get it out of calendars. And then House Bill 956 was just making sure that federal system and state system were up to date. So say for instance, if there was a protective order and a domestic violence protective order, making sure that they were synced up with each other so that individuals who technically are not allowed to have guns cannot get access to them. And so that one never even got a hearing. We're hoping maybe next session we can work it with the committee chair a little bit more. There was a hang up on it because they considered it a gun bill, and I kept telling them it's not a gun bill, it's a public safety bill, because it was supported by all of our law enforcement. And we were even going to have CLEAT and some of our chiefs and police officers were going to come testify in favor, but unfortunately, you know, the temperature on those particular bills is just very high on those. So that one, we filed a bill to subject ERCOT to public information requests. They currently are not. We also worked with and got very close to an organization and increasing public information for all governmental entities. So I anticipate we will probably file more bills within that realm, and just making sure that us as taxpayers, that agencies and organizations that receive our taxpayer money are subject to us, and they have to answer to us if we have questions or we have written requests. They should be required to respond to those. So we will consider that one as well. We filed a few medical insurance ones. One of them was making sure that doing away with prior authorizations for certain cancer screenings. We had a lot of people within the industry who let us know that very often they get hung up on that. And we know that delayed treatment is literally cost people their lives, and in situations where it's cancer or chronic diseases, we shouldn't have to go through prior authorization. And so this was one, as well as the other one, which mandated a 24/7 access line, telephone access line for authorizations, were two priority bills for the Texas Medical Association. And so they were very supportive of that as well. We hope that we will be able to get that a little bit further next session. And then we also had some AI bills, I talked a little bit about, that's kind of like an area that our office was very interested in. AI is something that even Governor Abbott, as well as other individuals, have said that that's going to be an area that we're going to continue to keep growing here in the state of Texas, and we should, but we just got to make sure that we do it in a safe way and that we have guardrails in making sure that we protect citizens. And so our AI guru in the house is Gio, and me and Gio worked closely on a few bills that we were very much interested within the AI realm, and I have a feeling that we'll continue to want to do more work in regards to AI, protecting public data, private data, that type of stuff, insurance, prior authorizations, those type of things, and then of course our local tax bills as well. Just some joint author bills, some of the ones that I can't remember, are any of these on Abbott's desk?
Some of them are, some of them aren't, I can tell you.
Okay. Sorry guys, at some point I just rely on my people to tell me. but
This first one is.
yeah, so this one is one that was actually asked for by Addison Police Department. And so we jumped on as I think we joint authored on this one.
And joint sponsor.
That's right. So this one was regarding search warrant for blood specimen in certain intoxication offenses. So right now, Addison PD has to actually like get somebody else to do it for them if there's an instance of like a DWI within their jurisdiction. And so this just allows them to fix that loophole because the law is not clear. And so that hopefully will most likely end up either being signed or not vetoed by Abbott. I assume he would be okay with this. But this was definitely an Addison ask for us to get across the finish line. Another one is credit for recapture payments being sent early. We used to do that for school districts. If you sent in the recapture payment, you'd get like a reduction of how much you needed to send in, and then at some point we did away with it. PLESA ended up refiling and allowing districts to get that credit again. That was one that we supported as well, and all of our school districts also supported, as well as some of our school agencies and teacher organizations as well. In addition to that, some of the suicide and mental health access for a lot of our first responders throughout the state of Texas. One of our huge ones was Representative Oliverson. He was gracious enough to let me be the first JA on his fentanyl strips bill. And this is, if we ever are able to get this bill across the finish line, it's going to be his bill. So Dr. Oliverson he has been fighting for this bill for a long time. It got to the Senate. It got a little heated on the Senate. A lot of people were pushing super hard and to the point that they were harassing members over this. And so I do not encourage that, please. Please don't do that. It does not help our efforts in being ugly. You can advocate in a very professional and thoughtful way. Harassing and berating and yelling at members does not get your bills across the finish line. And Representative Oliverson, after it happened, came out and said that as well. So I appreciate him always being a leader and respectful, and also the fentanyl crisis is very important to him, as it is to me and as it is to our whole district. So in the future, we'll obviously make sure we keep y'all up to date for that, and thank y'all to everyone who did reach out to our office and to other offices, letting them know that y'all supported this effort, especially from the Carrollton area. We had a lot of people that I let them know that we needed to keep fighting for this because we know how hard fentanyl has hit our district, but North Texas in general, but all over the state. This one was a Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD request, the joint author HB 1178. That was Representative Cunningham. This one was to allow temporary educator certificate for educators that are certified in other states. And so right now we just don't have enough, and we can't get them through the pipeline fast enough. And so Cassandra Hatfield. This has been her pet project, and we worked with her. We made sure we JA'd it. We're hoping, and if I remember correctly, I think this one is on the governor's desk as well. We're hoping that this will not get vetoed and that it will pass. It will have a huge impact for our school districts, especially Carrollton, Farmers Branch, ISD. Our trustees let me know that we've got people ready. We just need this to cross the finish line. So, I mean, I'm sure y'all know to what level that we can have certified teachers and where they need to be. We need to do that. And then just some of our co-author bills as well. Let me see.
These are all on the governor's desk.
Yeah,
A lot of things signed.
these are on, I'm sure a lot of y'all, the dementia prevention, that was a very big one for Dan Patrick, for Lieutenant Governor. And so we anticipate that one should cross the finish line. Very impactful, especially for our seniors. And then just a couple of things regarding the school district and taxes in general, and then wireless as well. I know some people are, you know, I've had people on both sides regarding the wireless stuff in the schools. I can tell you overwhelmingly the school, or not the school district, but our district that contacted us, people were pretty adamant that they just felt like they would prefer that students not have access to wireless cell phones during instructional time. And so that was one that we supported as well for that. I think we may have somebody here who is not very happy about that. I'm sorry. But I can tell you, and I've had this frank conversation even with our younger generation, because I've had a few of our students reach out to me about this. The real reason why is because, and I'm sure a lot of y'all, or some of y'all can agree with me on this, I didn't have as much access to cell phones whenever I was in school.
Me neither.
And I will tell you, we had so many groups come through. I mean, we looked at the research and the data and the amount of mental health struggles that our young people are going through, and the bullying and all of those things. I just felt like this was head in the right direction, and just making sure that whenever our children are in school, that they can really kind of concentrate on school and not be bogged down with all of these other stuff. And then parents can decide, however, they want to let their children utilize the cell phone outside of the school. And so I apologize if some of y'all don't agree with me on that, but I have seen it firsthand, and I saw the data, and I've also just heard it from individuals as well. And so it was, there were a few votes where it was like really, we had to do deep dives, and they had to do a lot of research on certain votes that I was going to take, or many often where I would be on the floor and I'd get on the phone and be like, hey, I got this, because sometimes when you're walking to the floor, groups will give you like sheets of paper, and they're like, vote no, and put data and stuff on there. And I'll get it, and I have my vote sheets. My staff and us work through and make sure that we have our vote sheets. And this is why this is a great learning opportunity for y'all. We have a system that logs every time you contact us, email, phone call, come by the office. We document what your position on an issue is, what you say. Of course, our office is supposed to get back out to you and let you know if whether I have a position on it or not, or if whether, or just as simple as thank you for giving this information, and we'll make sure that the representative is made aware of it. And we look at all of that, and they provide a system and will tell me on every vote, if it's a particular issue that constituents have contacted us on, how many people contacted our office for or against a particular thing. And that helps me make sure that I am always voting in line with my district. And do all the members do it? No. No. But it's something that I want to make sure that I always do. And so whenever I say, please contact us, if there's a particular issue that we were just talking about, a particular issue that's a passion of yours that you're really concerned about, reach out to us, because I do look at it, and my staff does look at it, and we do care. So. Yeah.
Is it, if I call one time, I'm down, if I call 10 times, do I count 10 times or just once?
No, we will count every time.
Okay, okay.
Unless it's the same bill. If you call 10 times at the same bill, it's the same position.
Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
the system itself doesn't log that. It's just like once you get logged as an individual for each. So if
So it's
multiple
just
times,
one,
I'll
even
log
although I call you a bunch of times on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although,
okay.
although if you call us a bunch of times, we'll just know who you are.
At a certain point,
Because my staff does know, and you know,
We
one
don't
of the
call her.
great things about, and y'all know this too, because so many of y'all know Julie. Julie's staff was so amazing as well that they just kept all of their stuff just so well put together, and we seamlessly transitioned her system into ours. So if you had ever contacted Julie about a particular issue, we already have your stuff in our system. So, yes.
One very quick thing.
Yeah.
If I'm not your constituent, do you count me?
So what we usually do if you contact us, you're not our constituent, we make sure to get that information to your particular representative. But my staff is able to gauge. And the only reason I say that is because I encourage even my constituents, when it's a thing like public education, I'm like, you know? Does every staff and every member do that? Probably not, but we do. My staff is pretty in tune with and knowing not only like the influx of, oh, we're getting a ton on this particular issue, and they are very much in tune with that whenever we're making sure that if that particular issue is either coming in front of me for my committee, or if I'm about to go on the floor and vote on it. So, I mean, Babaz very often will be like, oh yeah, this one's the one that's, you know, everybody's getting real hot about, and I'm like, okay, so like if I have any questions, very often we are on the phone talking it through, so.
Yeah, you may want to like pair up districts because, like for example, my congressional representative is Beth Van Dyne, and if I were to phone her up and tell her something, that'd be like screaming fire in a forest fire.
Yelling into the void.
Well, you know, we do work, so I'll give you an example. I had an individual contact me about a federal level type issue, right? But it had a little bit of a component of something involving special education funding. And so our office was able to address her concern about the special education funding and let her know how much we had allocated for that and what that was going to look like. But for the federal level, we preemptively reached out to Julie's office because Julie is her.
Yeah, Julie is a nice person.
Yeah. We work with Beth because my district overlaps both with Beth Van Dyne's and Julie's, and so we also know Beth Van Dyne's staff as well. So if there are ever any issues or matters that we can address, because maybe it's a federal level type issue,
Yeah.
we make sure to reach out to their office and give them a heads up of who's going to be contacting them. And then we let that individual who contacted our office know, this is your contact person. We've already notified them and let them know that you're going to be contacting them. And then we follow up and make sure that that was actually addressed. So that's just our level of our office, making sure that whoever contacts our office, we just want to make sure that they're taken care of, whether it's our job or not. So, and a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of stuff, even things like maybe your electricity has been out really long and Encore is not calling you back. Call us. You know, maybe you did something through your app for, I know Dallas is 311, for like, you know, any of the infractions or, you know, noise complaints, stuff like that, and you're not getting a good response back or a delay in response, call us. Because very often we might know somebody directly in their office that we can call and be like, hey, can you put that to the front? We need this help, like ASAP. I had that happen before with somebody who had put in and kept filing a complaint on their landlord because it was an AC issue and it was dead heat in the summer and their AC was broken. And it was like over 100 degrees and they had kids and they'd been waiting way too long. And so I reached out to the city and contacted one of the city council members, and I said, hey, this person's in your district, they're literally in the hot box, I need you to fix this. And it was like done within a couple hours. So just know, even if our office doesn't necessarily handle it, I guarantee you we know somebody who can, and we will do all our best to try to help you as much as we can.
But Brett, we gotta go, we only have 25 minutes left.
Perfect. Let's go. So I can answer some questions.
Yeah.
So these are just some of our June events that we have going on. We're supposed to be doing the Pride Resolution for Farmers Branch. I'm gonna do a legislative review for our Rotary folks over in Carrollton Farmers Branch. We'll also be over at the Carrollton Juneteenth celebration. We're also gonna be doing the cleanup at the Black Cemetery in honor of Reverend Rainwater. So if you are free, please come. It's such a great experience. I've done it a couple years now. We're going to be presenting the resolution at his at the cleanup to honor him, and I think the family would really appreciate seeing so many faces there, especially like an influx of maybe a bigger group than they've seen in the past, because this really has been his legacy, and he's worked very hard in doing that. And then we'll also be over at the Capel Party in the Park as usual. Hopefully, I don't know if you are doing the drones again. Yes, okay, awesome. We love the drone show, it was awesome. So we're looking forward to it, we'll be out there. Please stop by, we've got a lot of fun goodies for the kids and stuff that we're gonna have at our tent. So please stop by. And then, so we'll do question and answer, but just before that, I just want to let y'all know, just like I had said earlier, we're going to be working on the in-district, and in September, we're actually going to be implementing policy groups. And so if you're interested in any of the 3 policy groups that we'll be doing, one of them is going to be economic and business development, which we're going to be working with our chambers. We're going to do also public education. We'll be reaching out to all of our school boards for that as well as any of our PTAs or PTOs, our teachers, and as well as just members of the public as a whole, and then also public safety. So we'll be working with all of our chiefs, both for fire and police. And what we'll be doing on that is we're going to be evaluating past legislation. We're going to be talking about ideas for future legislation, and then also opening it up to the community for suggestions or concerns that they're seeing in the community or things they'd like to see. So that way we can start, already coordinating and collaborating on some of the legislation that we want to continue to keep doing in the future, and other ways that us as an office can be responsive and be present for our community. So if you are interested in doing that, just keep an eye out. We'll be sending all of that information here going forward. And then the only other thing that I can think of is we have our official kickoff at the end of the month for the campaign. I'm sure y'all couldn't tell yet, but I had, as brutal as it felt at times, I absolutely loved being y'all's state representative. It was a great honor to serve this session, and I can't tell people enough, a seat is not promised to anybody. And so I'm going to be working just as hard to make sure that I get reelected, and I hope that I'll have your support. And it was an honor. So with that, let's go ahead. So with that, let's go ahead and grab some questions. And okay, great. And if y'all have any additional ones, if y'all want to put them up in the air, and I'll have Mariah come and grab them if y'all have any. Awesome. Okay. So first one, school funding. What are the restrictions on teacher pay raises? Will 115 district teachers see an increase? So as far as the language, as far as the particular language on the teacher pay raises, there's not any restrictions. As long as the school districts are specifically using it for pay raises, they're able to utilize what money will come to them from what is allocated within the budget. So there's not necessarily any restrictions. Yes, go ahead.
Did they tie their pay raises to how well you run the office?
No. So in the actual language of the bill itself, no, there's nothing enumerated or stated as far as like if there's any threshold or requirements or anything in being able to get the pay increase. Now, the school district can do its own initiative and determine how they will allocate those pay raises. So that will be important in making sure that as a community, you voice to the school district that you want to make sure to be part of the process of what that is going to look like as far as pay raises for teachers. And so I know so many of y'all have been involved in showing up for a lot of our school district meetings. A lot of them are streamed online. If you haven't been able to watch any, you can go back and watch them. If, say, for instance, you get busy, I know Mariah and a lot of my other teammates do that because life, right? But the best way for us to make sure that it's done in the way that our community wants is for us to make sure to speak to the ones who are going to be implementing that. So the legislature is giving that money. It's going to be on the school districts to determine how it's going to, in fact, be allocated. But great question. Thank you. Okay. Oh gosh, this one makes me so sad. Is there any hope for public education in Texas? That makes me really sad. Yes, there is. There is absolutely hope for public education, and even though vouchers passed, and y'all know that I voted no on that, happily voted no against that. There is still so much that we can accomplish. One of them being the STAR test and making sure that we fix that. We got to make sure that we are properly testing in a way that is making sure that our schools are gauging, that our children are meeting what they need to be effective leaders and employers and employees and all of the things when they get older. But our funding shouldn't be tied to it. And it shouldn't be a situation where we are literally educating our children to pass a test. And that was one of the biggest things that a lot of legislators got from people coming to the Capitol. And it was in regards to the STAR test that everyone can agree, teachers, parents, school boards, the community as a whole, business leaders, we are not doing what we need to in preparing our children for success whenever we're literally teaching them to take a test. And so we need to, most importantly, we need to make sure that we are focusing on and listening to the experts. And very often in the legislature, y'all know this, whenever we're talking about business and economic development, we should be talking to our businesses. When we're talking about public education, we should be talking to our teachers, our school boards, and our parents, and our PTOs, and our PTAs, all of these things. And unfortunately, whenever you get to the legislature, those are not the people who are in the room that are making the decisions. And so we just gotta continue to keep showing up for our school board meetings, showing up to the legislature, calling our state reps and our senators, encouraging our neighbors and our family members to do the same. Because we never know if we're doing what we need to do unless we hear from you. So just continue to keep using your voice and showing up and in any way that you can. Because no way is better than the other. As long as you're doing it, it's so powerful and it's so impactful. So, okay, so the other one. Any idea for when the Campion Trail in Irving will happen? So we don't know yet. I did talk to John Wiest, which is the lobbyist for Irving, and we just put him in touch with our people with the Appropriations Committee to let them know what the process is for them to request the money, get the funds from the budget, essentially from the state. And so my understanding is that they're working on that right now and figuring out what that timeline is going to look like. But I'm sure once we figure that out, we'll definitely be communicating that. And I know John said that whenever they're in the process and everything, they're gonna reach out to our office so that our office can be present for that as well. So, and I know I think they sent out a newsletter with that information.
Yeah.
Just letting people know that we had gotten those funds for Irving for that particular reason. So.
Anyway, we got some more. We still have some time. So.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Can you work worked to add guardrails restrictions for the entities that receive ESA money, like public schools faced with testing and public board meetings. So it's a great question. I'd love to talk to y'all about that was a very long, very emotional night that we did vouchers. We tried, and these were some of the amendments that we had proposed, and unfortunately, all of them just ended up not even being able to be voted on because they got tabled. For those of you who watched the floor debate on that, you can motion to table, which means you don't even get to vote on the amendment. And that happened to most of all of the amendments that we were going to propose, and a lot of them were great ones, just like these two. Because these are just common sense guardrails. There were other ones that we had proposed as well. One of them was one that our office wanted to propose, and that was making sure that they capped, and that in particular in the rural areas, that you had to have been in business for a certain amount of time to even receive the ESA. And the concern with that was that a lot of the discussion for some of our rural Republicans were that they felt that this was never going to touch them because they don't even have a school. They don't have a private school or anything like that within the rural area. The problem is, and other states have done this, we've seen it, they pop up right after the ESA program was put in place. And so we talked about that, and one of the amendments that we wanted to propose, and that had been drafted up and slated to be a potential amendment, was specifically that. And that would have protected rural Republicans. And so, because they all took the stance, and by that I don't mean all, there was 2 Republicans, right, that voted against CSAs. So not all Republicans. So I want to be careful with that. I want to give grace to the people who stood with our public schools. This would have been one that should have
primary in the next election.
That should have had. Yeah, they may not come back, quite frankly. And so, anyways, this is something that we can't do. Can we try to fight for it next session? Can we file a bill? Sure, but I can tell you it's probably not going to get anywhere. I hate to say that. It could get somewhere if we have an election before then and pick up some pro-public education candidates. So that just, if that gives you motivation to help in those efforts, I encourage. So, that's what we're working with in the legislature. As heartbreaking as it was, vouchers was very hard for our team that night. So, and then I ended up in a boot.
Yeah, then she sprained her ankle.
Yeah.
That night.
I did. I fell down the stairs because we were delirious.
She literally fell.
So, but that was a very important night. It was a passionate night, not only for our district, but for me as being somebody who cares very much for our public schools, and I know all of y'all care about it as well. So it was a painful night for me, but I was proud that you sent me there to vote no. So, okay, so part 1. Oh, and then they decided not part 2. Okay, so just one question. When do you expect interim changes, and any idea what you'll be working on?
Interim charges.
Oh, charges. Okay, got it. I was like, changes.
Writing's horrible.
So there's a couple of things.
Can you explain what that means?
So there's a couple of things that will be going on in the interim. We're going to probably most likely have some committee hearings, and there will be different ones as well. So if we end up doing the redistricting special session, there will be most likely a committee for redistricting, which we will have to be present for, not for the committee hearings because I'm not on that committee, but I will have to be present for any votes that take place on that floor. For appropriations, we will also have interim meetings with a lot of our agencies to prepare our budget for the next biennium. So because I am on appropriations, I'll be in Austin quite a bit during the interim once we start a lot of those meetings as well. So we'll be crafting with Dr. Bonin and all of our committee chairmen to figure out what our next biennium budget will look like for as well. And then, of course, what other additional committees, committee hearings that we have, huh?
IGA.
IGA as well. I don't think I even really talked about IGA, but IGA, intergovernmental affairs, sorry. I saw your eyes like,
It's
I
grocery
forget
store.
sometimes you get so like intertwined into it, you forget that you're talking like a crazy person. So I was on IGA, that was my other committee that I served on, intergovernmental affairs, that handles all of our municipalities and our counties. And under that, I also served on the state and federal affairs. And on that particular subcommittee, I was the vice chair. And I was the only Democratic freshman vice chair in the Texas House. And so that was a great honor to be able to serve on that committee. It was a very ugly committee. I'm sure that y'all could probably put two and two together. We dealt with a lot of like the border stuff and just like state and federal relations in general. And so there was a lot of just really hateful, ugly policy stuff that came through there. But it was, I was honored to still be on it. I was honored to, very often I always tell people, I don't know what it is. I just like to be in the places where it gets ugly, awkwardly. I like to be the person who stands up against it and fights it. And that was the same with county and municipalities on IGA. We had a lot of erosion of local control that came through IGA. And that was a lot of stuff that I had to fight. I'll give you an example. I have a member who probably doesn't necessarily like me right now because I killed her amendment. And her amendment was not allowing entities that provide homelessness services within a vicinity of a school. And this was one that would be disastrous for MetroCrest services. We had up in Denton County, they called us and said this would shut us down. City of Dallas was like, this would destroy all of our shelters. And so Dallas reached out to City of Dallas and said, we want somebody to point of order it, which is what you do when you want to kill something. And so I point of ordered it and I killed it. And now I have somebody that probably doesn't necessarily like me. But that bill that she put forward was a bill that had came through my committee originally as a bill and not an amendment. She was trying to add it onto somebody else's bill. Last minute, this happens at the end when the clock's running out. People try to get their bills onto other people's bills by putting them as amendments. The only problem, and sometimes we let members do that because it's like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big controversy. A lot of times it's a local bill and we're just trying to let them, have a win for their district. But this was one that would literally be disastrous for MetroCrest, for so many of my cities, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. And so that's just an example of some of the stuff that, very often we talk about the fights or the votes on the floor, but a lot of the fight is really in the committees. Because if you can keep something from getting out of the committee, or if you can keep it from getting out of calendars, then it never makes it to the floor. And so that's just the process of seeing how all of those different things, how they all work with each other, and it's all part of a process. And it was great to be able to obviously be able to see that firsthand.
No time for one more.
One more? Okay, perfect. If I didn't get to all of your questions, if afterwards you want to come up and I'll put your information on the card and we'll make sure that we get you a response. Let me see. Here it is. Communications to your office and other offices. If someone emails using a template with or original wording, does one carry more weight? So this is a great question, because there are a lot of apps and organizations where you could just like put, you know, basic information in there and it'll mass send it out to several reps or like a committee or all the reps. And we get a ton of them all the time. But we go through each one of them. If you have your name, your address, for sure your name and your address on there, and we can tell that you're a constituent, we will respond and we will document it. For the mass ones, there's so many, there's just no way that we can do it. So, but does our office still, we can still tell that we're getting a ton on this particular issue. And so our office stays in tune with that. But just for your own, you know, information and whenever you contact legislators and senators in general, senators or state reps, or even Congress people, if for sure they know that you're a constituent, they will for sure respond. But a lot of times with some of these boilerplate type things, people will just send the email just from their email, and they don't even tell you that, you know, sometimes people don't even put their names in there. It's just from their email address, and it's just like a boilerplate statement. So please put your name, please put your address. You don't have to put your phone number, but if you do, please do, because we very often will also call people back and be like, hey, yeah, this, I mean, very often they're like, oh yeah, Cassie's against this. She's gonna vote no on it. We'll do that a lot. So please make sure that you put that information on there, because it is helpful. Because like I said, when it's a mass, you're just getting bombarded, and you've got like oh gosh, I think,
Thousands.
what was it,
Thousands of
vouchers? We got,
Yeah.
I mean, at some point I was just like doing this on my phone.
Like, you can vote against vouchers.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
And then SB3. SB3.
Oh, yeah.
THC.
Yes, the THC as well. We got so many emails on THC and that one. And then also some of the affordable housing bills
Yeah,
as well.
towards the end.
Yeah, so anyways, please do that. It helps us, and it makes it a lot easier for us to pinpoint that you're a constituent, because can we answer all of them? No, we don't. Do we still answer quite a bit of them? Sure, we do. But we just can't answer all of them. There's just no way, especially when we get overrun like that, and especially at the end of session. Because if most of y'all know, the real heavy stuff, it literally comes at the end. And at that point, we're just trying to keep our heads above water. And so I'm even still responding to some emails that I got like right at the end of session, just letting them know I voted no against this, you know? I'm so sorry I didn't respond to you, but I voted no, you know? And so just please give us grace. We're trying our hardest, and we want to be able to answer everybody and give everybody the individual time. And if we do know you're a constituent, you get moved to the front, because we've got to prioritize everybody from the district. So, but we still value your opinion for sure. So with that, I appreciate all of y'all being here today. Man, I want to do a big picture with everybody. Can we do like a selfie backwards?
You probably like stood there.
Can we?
Yeah.
Would y'all mind? I want to do a backwards selfie with all of y'all. This is awesome. I'm so excited that you are here. Just so you know, that y'all will get these slides, but these are just like our social media platforms. This is where we put a lot of our information. We'll be pushing out about the kickoff, what we're doing in the district, when we're doing the district office. Our policy groups are going to go out on our socials too, so please, those are on as well. And then of course, this is the web page to the State House. Even though I'm here in the district, we still have staff in the Capitol. If you still want to go do visits over there, the Capitol's still open. If you ever need anything, you can contact the office, you can contact us as well in the district. I'm so happy to be home, however long it may be, if we get called special. But if there's anything going on in your neighborhood or in your city that you would like me to come pop in, or if y'all want to go grab coffee, we're going to start back up our coffee series as well around the cities, just to touch base and just reconnect and see everybody again. So thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it.
This is Kate Bergeron with the Branch Herald. Thanks for watching.